What's going on, everybody? It's the Hook Cam, and welcome to the first installment of the Hook Cam podcast. I'm sure we'll get a better name for it down the road when I get more clever. The reason why I'm starting this is because I asked yesterday on my channel if people would be interested in me doing a weekly podcast, and it was like 97%, 96% yes, and I'm absolutely flattered by that. And I do want to say a quick thank you. 7,000 subscribers I just hit. It's absolutely mind-blowing to me that people hit that subscribe button for my channel and like what I put out there and like the content, and I'm just absolutely flattered by it. Can't thank you guys enough, and I'm going to keep grinding, because as long as people like what I'm putting out there, I'm going to keep doing it to the best of my ability. So a couple of people I want to thank: Jackson Kruger Sports over at Jackson Kruger Sports. Just an outstanding human being, someone I admire his work ethic. That dude is always cranking out content, and he's an absolutely hysterical guy too. So big thank you to him. And then the other guys that I want to thank is Luke G and the Detroit Sports Alliance. There is a long list of them, and I'll drop their names here and there, and I'll be sure to plug those guys in this episode, and it kind of fits into what I want to talk about. So the topics today are going to be Rodgers and Stafford, their respective teams, and how them being traded really could change the scope of the NFL. Green Bay's postseason woes, and how their subpar draft kind of got them to where they are. That might be a little bit of a dicey topic, might get some pushback there, but it's all good. Barry Sanders had some very interesting comments about Matt Stafford, and how it's going to be really hard to replace him. And then I popped over to Pro Football Focus to take a look at their mock draft, which I thought was just absolutely hysterical. So diving into our first topic, Aaron Rodgers, Matt Stafford. Rodgers came out today on the Pat McAfee show and really said, he basically said, I don't see myself being anywhere else but Green Bay. I think about that, and I think about the whole Brady saga this last year with New England, and I think there was kind of that vibe. I think there was that vibe, but was there really? Like, there was always kind of that darkness in the back of my head that was like, Brady's going to leave. You could kind of tell in press conferences and interviews that his mind was thinking about leaving. I kind of get that vibe from Rodgers, though. I really do. And the whole point of why I think Aaron Rodgers would leave is really because I just don't feel like Green Bay is doing anything to help him out. And I look at their draft that they had in that first round specifically, and you look at who they picked with their first rounder, and they end up drafting Jordan Love and the quarterback of the future. And I get it. I understand trying to build and trying to have a short rebuild and have that retool instead of a complete tear down and let's build it back up. But if I'm Rodgers and you're sitting there at 25, I believe is where they picked, and T. Higgins is on the board, and we all know, T. Higgins had a good under the radar rookie year. I don't have his stats in front of me. I could look him up, but he had a good under the radar rookie year. He's sitting on the board. Michael Pittman was a fantastic receiver at USC. I remember watching him in a game. He had like 11 or 12 receptions, and he was so consistent for USC, I think. Every time I watched a game, he was catching footballs for him and doing well. Chase Claypool, those are three guys that got drafted after Jordan Love. And I understand that we start kind of getting into draft strategies and, what's the strategy behind what the Packers are trying to do. And it just doesn't make sense to me that they go and draft Jordan Love. And that's something that's really bugged me about the Packers moving forward with this season, is that you have a talent like Aaron Rodgers. And I think he's 37. He's getting up there. I understand that, but it's not like it shows on the field. The dude's still an absolute stud. And the fact that you don't go and get weapons to surround him with, right? And think about now, if you're a defensive coordinator and you're going in to play the Packers, all you really have to game plan for is if you can bracket Devontae Adams and you can force Rodgers to go elsewhere, you're going to create a chance for you to get pressure on the quarterback, for you to lock up those receivers, because at the end of the day, the receivers have to create that separation, right? And Rodgers is outstanding, but we kind of saw it with Brady in his last year in New England. A big part of the woes with Brady in New England in his last year was that receivers weren't getting separation. And the Patriots really didn't take the steps necessary to go and get him guys. Now, I can't say for certain they didn't take the steps because it's possible they did and everything kind of fell through, which I think is a big part of it. I think that they were probably in on they end up with Mohamed Sanu, but they were probably in on Stephon Diggs. They were probably in on DeAndre Hopkins, but those deals fell through for a number of reasons. I think a big part of it is people just don't want to deal with Belichick. They don't want to trade with Belichick because he swindled so many people. It's almost like the Danny Ainge effect. But at the end of the day, right, you look at the game plan, you look what's on the field, and you could tell that Brady was frustrated. Receivers weren't getting open. He didn't have Gronk. All he really had was Julian Edelman, who, he can create separation as much as he can, but a lot of what he does is schemed up. So you got N'Keal Harry on the outside. Yeah, he's good, but he's a young pup. He's a young blood, right? Not only that, but he was injured the first 8 weeks, and I see that kind of happening with Green Bay. And their offense is obviously different. Rodgers throws the football, and Rodgers throws the football. Yeah, you think, Cam. But Rodgers got that quick release, right? They're going to scheme dudes open. I get that. I get all of that. But if you're Aaron Rodgers, you have Devontae Adams, then you go Allen Lazard, then you go Marquez Valdez-Scantling, right? You didn't know about Robert Tonyan at that point, so you can't give me that. It just doesn't make sense to me that they don't go and pick somebody else up to help him offensively. Imagine if they go into this NFC Championship game and they have a T. Higgins, they have a Michael Pittman, they have a Chase Claypool. That's a different looking offense. Is it entirely different? No, but that's still a factor they have to account for. Instead of, that second option of Lazard or that third option of Valdez-Scantling, or if those two guys are flipped. And it's not like those two guys aren't good receivers, because they are. They're serviceable, absolutely. But at the end of the day, I think that they would have been in a much different position had they drafted one of those two guys. Now, the other position that I really think the Packers could have addressed and didn't was their linebackers. And they lose Blake Martinez, and I know that Blake Martinez, as much as he's a tackling machine, it's not like he's coming downhill and filling gaps and making tackles for a loss of one or at the line of scrimmage. He made a lot of tackles laterally, which isn't necessarily always great for a linebacker. But the obvious choice for me with the Packers at that pick was Patrick Queen from LSU. And I think that if you have Patrick Queen in that defense, that's a different animal. Right, that's a backer who can move sideline to sideline. He can cover across the field. He can drop into coverage. He can do everything you need. And the fact that that guy was there and the receivers were there, and you turn around and draft a quarterback, I personally felt like it was a slap in the face to Rodgers. I honestly did. And I think that kind of ultimately came back to haunt him. And we'll see, what happens. Rodgers looked pretty pissed post-game, but of course emotions are flying and you have to account for that. But that really was interesting to me, that of all the options they had, they end up going with Jordan Love. Now, going from that and talking Lions, Matt Stafford is one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the NFL. He's an absolutely outstanding football player. He's got an absolute howitzer of an arm. I mean, he's got a rocket launcher attached to his right shoulder. This dude, he has every throwing talent you could have in the book. Every throwing talent. He can hit your quick game. He can hit your deep balls. He can hit your run action. He can go across the field. He can scramble if he needs to. He can step up into the pocket. He is tough as nails. How many times have we seen this dude wear a hit? Right, that play against the Browns, right, when they're driving down the field, this is from a few years ago. He gets hit. For those of you who haven't seen it, he gets hit, lands on his shoulder. He breaks his collarbone on his non-throwing shoulder, if I'm not mistaken. And they get down to the 1 yard line, and it's literally like, you're down 4, you need a touchdown. And they're trying to take him out. Coach is trying to take him out. He's like, no, don't take me out. I'm ready to roll. And he goes back in there, throws a touchdown. That's the dude you want leading your team. Every single time. That's a dude you're going to go play for. That's a dude you're going to go lay it all on the line for on the field. And unfortunately, Stafford, I don't really feel like was treated all that well by the Detroit media. And I was seeing things on YouTube of, Detroit guys being happy that Stafford's gone. I know that Luke and I talk all the time about how fans don't really appreciate him. And that just blows my mind, that you have a dude who, and it all kind of, when talking with Luke, it goes back to that win-loss record, which I think, I don't want to say it's a throwaway stat, but it's pretty damn close to a throwaway stat for a quarterback, because Matt Stafford has played his balls off for Detroit since he was drafted, and his win-loss record isn't going to show that. His win-loss record is going to show that he's been beat a bunch of times. But Matt Stafford on a team, and obviously the team that I think of because I'm a Patriots fan is New England, but if you put him on a team like, New England or Indianapolis, he's going to put up numbers and he's going to put up wins. And that's going to be the first time in his career that you're doing that. And I think if Stafford goes to the right spot, he's got a legit 5-6 years left. I think he's only 32 right now, could be longer. So I'll kind of dive into the trading spots that I think Stafford could end up at here in a sec. So I did a little bit of research today of teams that I thought could be suitors for Rodgers and Stafford, right? Now, Rodgers, obviously, he's got the contract that you have to deal with. So there's some things that you have to take into account. And the popular spots that we're seeing, Indianapolis, for sure. One team that I wasn't really expecting, the Washington football team, they're in the hunt, I should say. New England, 49ers is a team that keeps getting tossed around, but the 49ers only have like $9 million in cap space, and I did all the research I did was from Over the Cap, overthecap.com, and they have a tremendous breakdown on there. For any of you guys who are nerdy like me, if you want to go check that out, definitely go check them out. I don't know if they need a plug, but there you go. And they do a really good job breaking things down. Anyway, so you get into Indianapolis, right? Because that's kind of the first team that and kind of going into Detroit's mindset as well when you're trying to trade him. You don't want to trade that dude within the NFC, I would say. I would try and stay out of that. I wouldn't want Stafford in the NFC. I would want to trade him into the AFC, into a team that I'm not going to see except once every 4 years. So the Indianapolis Colts make sense. Now, when you look at their cap space, does it make sense? Absolutely, it checks the box. They have $64 million in cap space. Now, the obvious question for me is, okay, they got all that cap space, but who's a free agent? Who do they want to bring back? Who do they want to re-sign? T.Y. Hilton's a free agent. Justin Houston's a free agent. Malik Hooker, Trey Burton, Mo Alley-Cox, and then their punter, Ryan Allen. There definitely are some questions on whether or not Indianapolis would bring back T.Y. Hilton. I think that they would. I don't see why they wouldn't. I think he's been there his entire career. He's probably comfortable. Do you really want to move the family? And especially if you can go and put that bait out there of, hey, we just picked up Matt Stafford, you bet T.Y. is going to want to come back. So I definitely think that that's a possibility. But like I said, $64 million. T.Y. is a free agent. Justin Houston's getting up there. I wouldn't be shocked to see them not sign him. Malik Hooker, he's played pretty well for them defensively, so I think that he's definitely a priority to bring back. Trey Burton and Mo Alley-Cox. My thoughts on those two guys is you don't want to lose both. I think that you might be okay letting one of them walk, but both of those guys had a pretty big role in that Colts offense this year. So I would imagine they want to bring one back. Maybe they're cool letting the other walk. And then their punter, Ryan Allen, he's an expatriate. Absolutely, he's a phenomenal punter. So, but he's not going to be a huge price tag. But Indianapolis makes sense to me. Now, the other team that I keep seeing is the 49ers. And if over the cap is right, the 49ers have $9 million in cap space. And the 49ers is that team that keeps getting tossed around, but I just don't really understand the logic behind it. They have Jimmy Garoppolo. He's been injured a ton. Absolutely. He's also under contract. So if you want to go and move Jimmy Garoppolo, you have to find a team that's willing to take a quarterback that's completed, I think, one season since he's played for them and has a tremendous price tag on him. There's not going to be a lot of suitors for that. There's just not. Even New England, there's not going to be a lot of suitors for that. On top of that, you look at the 49ers free agents. Trent Williams, stud left tackle, one of the better left tackles in the league. I would imagine San Francisco is going to want to bring him back. Richard Sherman's a free agent. Solomon Thomas, Jaquiski Tart. I don't know, I'm butchering his first name, but I know Tart's a Northern Illinois guy. He's been kind of their in-the-box safety or their slot corner. Played well for him. Kyle Juszczyk, who's a huge part of that offense. If you're Kyle Shanahan, you do not want to see him walk. And then Tevin Coleman. He's another guy who's had the injury bug here and there, and I'm always kind of that belief that you can replace the running back position pretty easily. So, Coleman you could probably let walk. Sherman you can probably let walk. Solomon Thomas hasn't done everything you've wanted since you've drafted him. He hasn't been as advertised, but still, maybe you're getting through to him coaching wise. Maybe he's catching on to things. Maybe he's a guy you want to bring back on a cheaper deal because he doesn't have that high price tag yet. Trent Williams is for sure a guy that I would want to bring back, especially if I'm going to, even if you have Jimmy G, it doesn't matter if you have Stafford or Jimmy G. You want to protect the Q, and he's a guy who can do that. The other team that makes a lot of sense is the Washington football team. They have $35 million in cap space, right? Again, all according to Over the Cap. And when you look at their free agents, they don't have a ton. So they have a decent amount of cap space, although if you pick up Stafford, he's probably going to eat up a decent chunk of that. Brandon Scherff is really the only free agent that I saw from that list, and I could be wrong because I'm not a religious Washington football team guy, but Brandon Scherff is really the only guy from that list that I would look at and go, we need him back. Kerrigan, the word has been floating around with Ryan Kerrigan that he probably won't return. His playtime decreased this year from what I saw. Probably a guy that you can go and replace in the draft. But the Washington football team is definitely a squad that you could target. If you're Detroit, they're definitely a team you could target as potential trade partners. Now, the last team, and from talking to Detroit fans, they don't want them to go here, but I'm all about it. The New England Patriots. New England Patriots have $53 million in cap space. Okay, they have a lot, and I mean a lot, of free agents that they need to re-sign. Just looking off my list right here, Joe Thuney. I want them to re-sign Joe Thuney so bad. He is a top 3 guard in the NFL. He's an absolute stud. You watch his film from when they played the Rams in the Super Bowl. He had an outstanding game against Aaron Donald in the Super Bowl. I'm talking one-on-one blocks. I'm talking reaching. I'm talking down blocks. I'm talking everything. Everything. The dude does everything. Not only that, but legitimately, I think that you could count on one hand how many games that guy has been injured since he came into the league. He's a pillar of consistency for the New England offensive line. I really hope they re-sign him. I don't think they will. Outside of that, you have Jason McCourty. I would imagine they bring him back. The McCourty brothers love playing together. I don't know if they let Jason McCourty walk. I don't think they will, although his playtime did decrease. Outside of that, there's still fundamental guys in this New England offense who are gone. James White obviously has been a core of New England for the last however many years. Defensively, Lawrence Guy, David Andrews, right? They're center. So now you have Thuney and Andrews going out. Those are two dudes you want to bring back, that you need to bring back, right? You don't want to have to replace 2 starting roles on that offensive line. That's a recipe for disaster. I think they bring Andrews back. I don't know if they bring Thuney back. John Simon, who's done everything Belichick's asked for him. He's a prototypical Belichick end. Deceptively fast, very physical, good football player. Rex Burkhead, another free agent, right? And I wouldn't be shocked to see Burkhead and White move on. I don't know what their market is going to look like, so I wouldn't be shocked to see them take a lower contract in order to come back to New England. Dietrich Wise, who's kind of been coming onto the scene for New England as a pass rusher. He's a good football player. I hope that they re-sign him. I don't know what his market's going to be like. J.C. Jackson is a restricted free agent. Now, this is what a restricted free agent is because I didn't know what it was, okay? Basically, a team can sign an offer sheet for J.C. Jackson, and the New England Patriots have a chance to match that. Okay, so if a team wants to sign him for however much a year, New England has a chance to sign that. If they sign that match sheet, then he has to stay in New England. That's what I got from that. So New England is definitely a spot that I could see Matt Stafford going to, 100%. He would fit in with that offense. He would change the path of the New England Patriots, the trajectory of the New England Patriots, I think. And I've always kind of believed this, I don't think that New England's going to draft a guy and have him be the face of the franchise. That offense is too complicated to have a rookie step in and be the face of the New England Patriots and run that offense. I just don't think they will. I think that they would rather sign a vet, trade for a vet, and have him run it. Have a guy who's got NFL experience go. And Stafford's a guy who's had multiple offensive coordinators. He knows multiple systems. He's a dude that would come in, fit in with New England. He would get a chance to win. He would have a good defense. He would have a running game. But the problem is you bring in Matt Stafford, you need to bring in David Andrews, Joe Thuney, or a replacement. That's the biggest thing with New England. And again, if you move on from Rodgers and Stafford, if those two guys go, they're going to change the scope of the NFL. They really are. I would imagine both of those guys would go AFC, which means that you would have Mahomes, Lamar, Rodgers, and Stafford all in the same conference. Those guys duking it out. If Baker can keep up with what he's doing with the Browns, Josh Allen as well. I mean, it could be an absolute gauntlet in the AFC if both of those guys move. I don't think Rodgers moves. I think that Rodgers will probably stay pat. Stafford, I do think, moves on, though. But you never know with Green Bay. You never know. Because it's always that unknown with rookie quarterbacks that coaches want to dive into, that coaches want to get into a little too early sometimes. That's what I felt like happened with Tua, right? They wanted to see, okay, do we have the guy that we need? And I think that he needs time, and that's probably we'll probably touch on him a little bit later in another episode of this podcast. But I'll leave that in the NFC North for right now. One other thing I do want to hit on. Barry Sanders making a really good comment about Matt Stafford, just saying he's going to be really hard to replace. It's obvious, and I think to the casual fan, they're like, yeah, obviously. But from what I've heard about the Detroit media and what those guys say about him, I don't think that he's the most loved, and I think that he kind of became the scapegoat for Detroit in a really unfair way. And that's a bummer to hear. I mean, like I said, and like I said before earlier, this dude's done everything you can, and talk about a guy who knows about giving everything he can for a franchise. Barry Sanders did that for the Detroit Lions for a long time. And I think that it really means a lot that he's coming out and saying things about Matt Stafford. It's just cool to see. So anyway, moving on from the NFC North, the last thing that I wanted to talk about is Pro Football Focus. Okay, and if you guys don't know, I'm really not a big Pro Football Focus guy. That's a story for another day. But they have the one thing that really stuck out to me. I looked at their mock draft today to kind of set the scene. Okay, and the first thing I saw in their mock draft is the Bengals taking Jamar Chase at number 5 overall. And all I could think of was Joe Burrow sitting there thinking, why are you taking a receiver at 5 overall? Why are you doing this to me? Do you hate my knees? Do you want me to get injured every year? Is that what you want from me? If I'm the Bengals, I'm doing everything I can to trade into the top 3 to draft Penei Sewell out of Oregon. And I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but that dude's an absolute stud. Now, in order to do that, you're going to have to try and make a move with Miami, maybe New York. I'm pretty sure that those top 2 spots of Jacksonville and New York are locked in. Now, they have Trevor Lawrence going 1 overall. I don't think that would be a shocker. The only sneaky thing I see with that is maybe Urban Meyer is just a diehard Justin Fields guy. He probably recruited him and got him there. Maybe he's just in love with Justin Fields. I've heard that he is. But again, when push comes to shove, it's going to be pretty tough to not take Trevor Lawrence. The other thing that I have a gripe with this mock draft is the Jets taking Zach Wilson at 2 overall. I'm not a Zach Wilson guy. I think he's an absolute freak athlete. I think he's got a phenomenal arm. I worry about his upstairs. I worry about how he processes plays. I worry about that. And going into a situation like New York, that's not a good thing to have, right? I would rather have, if I'm New York, I would rather pass on Zach Wilson, build the interior of my offensive line, help build my defense. And it's not sexy, it's not flashy, it's not what New York fans want, and it's not what's going to happen. But at the end of the day, in 4 years, when New York's drafting another quarterback in the top 3, top 5, whatever, this is a time that they could have used this 2 overall to go and build that team, build that offense, right? Help your guys out. They're not doing that. And that's why they're in this revolving door of who's playing quarterback for us. I mean, legitimately, it was 4 years ago when they drafted Sam Darnold, and everybody was talking about how Sam Darnold's going to be the next. I love Sam. I'm a Sam Darnold fan. I really am. And I don't think that he really gets a fair rap in New York. Guys, I made a video on, why Sam Darnold isn't the problem. Guys are like, oh, he makes bad reads. He does this. It could be the coaching. I mean, has this guy had a legitimate football coach since he's been in New York? He's had to deal with Adam Gase for the last 2 years. Who knows what other guys are on that staff? Who knows who his quarterback coach is? And even if his quarterback coach is a stud, who knows what Adam Gase is telling him? I don't know how Adam Gase has a head coaching job. I don't mean to be mean to Adam Gase, but we all know that wasn't the right hire. And then at 3, they've got the Dolphins taking Sewell out of Oregon. That's the right pick for them, 100%. I agree with that. But I just think that Jamar Chase at 5 with the Bengals to kind of branch off into the AFC North, is it flashy? Is it sexy? Yeah, absolutely. It's a good pick. He's an absolute freak receiver. If he played this year, it's him or Devontae Smith going as the top receiver in this draft. But if I'm the Bengals and I got a kid like Joe Burrow and I saw the punishment that kid took this year, I would be hard pressed to not try and find a way to trade up to 3 or to find another offensive lineman who can be that guy for me at 5. And there is a drop off in tackles. I will give them that. I'm looking at their mock draft right now. Besides Sewell, the next big guy that they have is this Rashawn Slater out of Northwestern. I haven't watched enough film yet, to be honest with you guys, to sit there and say yes or no on who's there. But at 5 overall, you start talking about draft strategies. Probably a lot of coaches are thinking best available, no matter what. Is it receiver? Is it corner? Whatever. We're going to take the best available. And if Jamar Chase is there, I don't hate that pick. I do hate it from Joe Burrow's perspective because I feel bad for him. And the biggest thing the Bengals need right now is they need offensive linemen. They need guys who can protect Joe Burrow. That's the face of your franchise for the next however many years. And you need to keep that guy upright. You can't have him tearing ACLs like he did in his rookie year, 9 games in. At 5 overall, I would even make a trade for a solid guy. Trent Williams is a guy that the Bengals better be targeting in free agency. 100%. So anyway, guys, that's kind of all I got for today from this first podcast. I said 10 to 15 minutes. We're at 26 right now. Classic Cam. That's all I got for you guys today. If there's anything you guys want me to hit on for next week, go ahead, leave it in the comments below. I will be happy to talk about that. Also thinking about mixing in some live streams here and there. So that's all I got for you guys today. Hope everybody's having a good day. Hope everybody's fired up for the Super Bowl. I'll be doing a little Super Bowl podcast for sure. I'll do that over the weekend, kind of do my preview of it. But that's all I got for you guys today, man. Have a good one. Hope everybody's staying safe, enjoying life, living life to the fullest. But that's all I got, man. I'll see you guys next time.